Hello all. Thank you for joining. It's We took a break last time, so we are meeting after 4 weeks. Okay, so I hope everyone is still excited about Agile. As you can see on my screen, there's going to be two agenda items today. Third one I have striked out because I believe we'll have a short of time. It's the first agenda item. It's going to be a flashcard, which is for information radiator. Spend about 10 minutes for it. The second one is extreme programming. So we'll try to cover as much as we can on a high level for extreme programming. I'll tell you what it is, what are the feedback loops and the roles that are there in XP, and then we'll reserve some time for Q&A towards the end. We'll also do a little bit of quiz. The third agenda item here, Jude for UML, is something that I will take up next week. Okay, I love tools and I like to see Agile and tools in action. So next week we will spend about 15 to 20 minutes just looking at how we can use Jude for UML modeling. Okay, and at any point in time, if you have any questions, you should see a question box in your control panel for the GoToWebinar. Feel free to ask your questions there. I'm sure I'll be able to get to all your questions. If not, I will still be answering your questions offline. Okay, so let's start with information radiator. Okay, so first of all, what are information radiator? So everything that you see, like all the visual graphs and charts, um, everything, whether you're trying to collect statuses or matrices, everything is a part of information radiator. Okay, so information radiator, they are very, very important in our agility when we are talking about development. What's most important here is, what makes information radiator most effective. Okay, so effective information radiators are they are simple. Okay, what you see on the screen here, on the side, on the right hand side, is just it's a very pepped up version of information radiator, something that you may see. As you can see, it is very simple. They are simple to understand, very graphical, very visual. Another trait of an effective information radiator is that it is stark. What it means is that it shows you the reality. It is not trying to sugarcoat anything. It is showing you the status or the progress or matrices as they stand right now. Okay, it is not uh, massaging any data, or it's not trying to hide anything. It's an honest, stark report. Effective information radiator, or also current. Looks like there's a question already. Okay, are you guys able to hear me? I hear that somebody mentioned that they're not able to hear me. Just say yes in chat or questions. Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Okay, so we were on the third bullet of the effective information radiator. Um, they are current. What it means is that they are showing you the latest and the greatest information. It's these days we have tools. Uh, I'm going to show you one of the examples too. But these days we have tools which just pull information from uh, those from a database, and they just show you the real information as current as it is. So whenever you go to a web page, you'll see the most recent information there. Okay, another very good trait of an effective information radiator. Also, they are transient. What it means is that the information there is ever changing. That as and when you are logging work against your stories, whether you are creating new stories, updating your backlog, updating your release cycles, your calendars, etc., you will see changes in information radiator. Okay, so they are very transient. Another important trait of information radiator is that they're influential. All this information that you see in bars and in charts and graphs and matrices, it is going to be useless if you're not able to draw any conclusion and make any decisions from them. Okay, so a good example is that you see a burn down chart where your burn down is deviating from your reference. Okay, we looked at the burn down charts a few webinars ago. So if it is deviating from the reference, that means that there's a problem. Either you will not be able to finish everything that you committed in a sprint on time, or there's something that is unexpected that has come up, which is taking your time away from the sprint. Okay, so at that point you'll be able to make a decision. What you want to do. Uh, whether you want to go back to product owner, let them know what is the reality right now and how it is going to affect. Just take some kind of a corrective action. Okay, so that's a good example of how information radiator can uh, influence a team and you as scrum masters or agile coaches. Effective information radiators are also highly visible. What it means is that it's not just information that is available to management or top management or scrum masters or product management. It's available to everyone. Okay, information radiators, they should be accessible by anyone in the team, all the way from CTO or CEO down to anybody, even if they're doing technical writing. Uh, so everybody in between should be able to see information radiator. Last but not the least, they are minimal in number. Okay, this is something that is easier said than done. Um, as uh, as an agile coach, as an administrator for my tool that we use for agile, I try to make sure that I'm trying to compress most information in the least amount of space. Okay, so they are um, anybody in my team shouldn't have to hop from one web page to another web page to get the information that they're looking for immediately. Okay, so we try to make sure that they are minimal in number. I'm going to show an example. Um, this, I hope you can all see the web page that I'm sharing. It's a Jira dashboard. This is something that I use on a daily basis every morning when I log in. This is where I come in. I have this, you know, immense information shown to me in, beautiful charts and graphs, which is very useful. For example, I can tell I'm looking at the top right side gadget, which is showing me the burn down. I'm showing you a burn down from an older sprint here just for the demo purpose, but it is showing me that green line is deviating pretty high from the red line. Okay, which is a sign of a trouble. Okay, so if it is deviating this far, I can actually go in and I can look at the details of what all stories that are there in the sprint, and I can look at why this may be happening. I can also expand it. Let me come back. This is, by the way, this is a Greenhopper tool that is a plugin for Jira, which um, lets me look at the details of the burn down. Okay, this burn down, I'll be taking in Greenhopper. I'll be taking in great detail as a tool in one of the forthcoming webinars. Okay, so you'll see how useful Greenhopper can be if you're using Jira. Okay, so let me just go back to my dashboard. Okay. Also, there's a whole lot of other information that is shown here. Just it'll take a few seconds to load. Okay, so you can see the pie chart of, from in sprint 15 for a particular module. This is my team, and I can see how their allocation is. I can see it in the form of a pie chart. I can see the code review, how we are progressing with the code review. These are just different gadgets that are provided by Jira. Okay, I can also see different statuses, stories by statuses. I can see that, in sprint 15 I have 5 stories that are closed, 4 stories that are in reviewed status, 6 stories that are in open status. Okay, another example of information radiator, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole lot that you can do with information radiator. These are just some examples. Okay, so burn down chart, burn up charts, all these, they are, anything visual that you see to collect status, matrices, progress, etc. They are all examples of information radiator. Okay, all right, so I'm going to move on to the topic, which is the next agenda item, extreme programming. Okay, or XP. Extreme programming is one of the earliest agile methodologies that was invented. Okay, a lot of people say that extreme programming was the very first one which kind of started the whole agile movement. There are 12 XP practices and 5 core values. Okay, looks like somebody is not uh, able to hear me. Maybe you want to check your speakers, John. Okay, so moving on. Um, Let me just message them. Okay, so we are talking about XP here. Uh, there are 12 core practices and 5 core values that are a part of extreme programming. Okay. Team size of an XP team can vary from 2 to 12. You can see, even 2 people can form an XP team and can be as large as 12. For those of you who are more familiar with Scrum, if you remember, the team size there can vary from 7 plus or minus 2. Okay, as per the Scrum guidelines, that means from 5 to 9. Whereas in XP you can have up to 12 members in the team. Again, it is just a guideline. It's not something that should be that is set in stone. There are XP teams which are bigger than that and have success stories. The iteration duration, which is similar to the sprint duration in Scrum, the iteration duration can be anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks. Again, this is a guideline. There are XP teams which have successfully worked with longer than 3 week cycle, but this is something that when this is a guideline that tells you, this is when it will be optimal for an XP team. So we're going to look at the core values first, and then we'll talk about each of these XP practices. Let's start with simplicity. Okay, so we try to an XP team tries to keep simple things simple. Okay, we don't try to make a lot of not try to bring a lot of complexity. It is very easy, for especially in software development, that you uh, try to overanalyze things, try to make things that are uh, not really needed at that time, but you try to provide flexibility and extendability uh, infinitely, which is not always needed. So XP tries to keep simple things very simple. Okay. Communication is a very big value, not just in XP, but in Agile as a whole. So, um, eh, uh, communication can come in various different forms. And, I believe most of you, if not all of you, are project managers or aspiring to be project managers or agile coach. So you understand, the synchronous communication, there's asynchronous communication, there are different modes, different tools that are available. There's verbal, there's written, there's formal, informal. So communication as a whole is very, very important in XP. Okay, an XP team will absolutely fail if the communication is of poor quality. Okay, so very, very important thing in XP is, and in Agile, is the communication has to be very, very crisp, and it has to be the backbone of the whole success of a team. Another core value is feedback. XP has a very, uh, very strong feedback mechanism. We are going to look at it in a little bit. uh, I have a separate slide for just for the feedback value in XP. Uh, the fourth value here is respect. It means that the team members, they would come from different functional background, different backgrounds as a whole, education, cultural, etc. It's important to understand that there are, different backgrounds, and that there will be, that they are also respected in that term. Okay, so it's important that the members who are working in extreme programming teams, they respect each other at the very core level. Okay, without that respect, it is very difficult for a team to succeed. And the fifth value here is courage. What it means is that there are uh, one should not be afraid of working on solving difficult problems. It's easy to look away when you find that there's something messy, or there's something that needs close attention, or something that's going to take a lot of your time, effort, but it is rudimentary to the success. So it XP encourages you to roll up your sleeves and not be afraid to get your hands dirty. Okay, so very important core value. Let's look at all the practices, the XP practices that we have. Okay, so you can see that there are three circles here, from, red, green, and blue. So we'll go from the outside, uh, which is a higher level. So in XP, there's a concept of whole team. What it means is that everybody, whether it is, everybody is a part of the team. Unlike Scrum, where you see that there are three different roles. You have product owner, you have Scrum Master, and you have team. So team members, they form the core team. In XP, everybody is a part of the team, whether you're an agile coach or XP coach or product owner, sometimes even customer, which can be an internal customer. Everybody is a part of the XP team. Then you have the customer tests. This is very important. Uh, XP understands that, customer has to be at the very core of their work. Everything that they're doing is to add value to what customer wants. What it means is that it engages customer at a very high level, um, at a very high degree in the whole implementation development process. So customer tests, they are very important from the get-go. Okay, it is not as if that you'll start doing the implementation and towards the very end you'll try to find out when you try to do a UAT, user acceptance testing. So think of customer tests as the acceptance tests which are built at the time of the implementation, not towards the end. And they are actually coming from the customer. The customer can be internal customer, which could be a product owner in Scrum terms, or it can be a real customer, you know, a persona that is actually going to use your system, what you're building. So customer tests, very important. Okay, then you have small releases. Small releases, again, it's also closely tied with the iteration duration. um, XP encourages you to uh, release the value that you have built in your implementation development effort into be able to release that quickly to the customer. Small releases also is one of the big core practices on the Agile Manifesto. If you go to agilemanifesto.org, small releases is one of the big values, big practices that is specified there in clear terms. Then you have the planning game. Planning game is something, XP treats the whole planning as a game where the pieces are the stories in the backlog, or the tasks or activities in the backlog, and the goal is to try to put out most of the stories, complete most of the stories at the end of every iteration. Okay, so there's a planning game. There are there's great information about planning game in XP, how there are different ways of playing it. I will be happy to share some of the links, but if you just Google XP planning game, you'll see some really good content online. Coming to the circle that is in the middle, the green circle here, you can see that there are a few things that are in here. So I'll start with the coding standards and metaphor. Okay, so you see coding standard here and metaphor. They they are very important XP practices. What it means is, and it's not really XP. Coding standards have been there for a very long time. It's just that XP treats them as very important artifact. Metaphor and coding standard, they're both closely related. So those of you who have come from a technical software background, they already know what coding standards are. How you're going to name your class, how you're going to name your method, what are the conventions you're going to follow for your variables. What are the standards that we are going to follow. Okay, they may be documented in one place, which is visible to everybody in the team. Also metaphors are also sometimes kind of ignored, but we all use them. For example, if you have a big product and you want to refer to a particular functionality in that product, maybe something like payment gateway interface, okay, in e-commerce terms. So you in your product, product owners or business analysts, they may be referring to that as uh, gateway integration. Okay, so gateway integration in terms is a metaphor. Okay, so that everybody knows in the whole organization, whether it is technical, non-technical, what you're referring to when you say gateway. Okay, so gateway becomes a metaphor. Okay, so it's important to declare what are the metaphors in when you're working in an XP team. Collective ownership, again, uh, a huge practice, and I'm a big follower of this practice. Uh, in XP, you do not have any module lead or uh, one person who owns a piece of code in the product or a project. Okay, everything is owned by everyone. It should appear, as if that the whole product, the whole code for a product was written by just one very efficient programmer. Following the same coding standard, same metaphor. So it's important that we understand that it also ties with the core value of courage. Okay, that one has to show courage to be able to look at code that was written by somebody else, maybe. Sometimes you have to do enhancements, bug fixes, etc. Okay, it doesn't mean that it has to go to the same person who actually wrote the original code for that feature or story. Continuous integration, it's a very, very big topic and very close to my heart. I will be taking a whole different session just for continuous integration. It's a very big mantra these days in Agile. A lot of you may have heard about it already, and we will all become more educated about that once I take a separate session on that. Uh, but at a very high level, continuous integration, it means that we have so many developers working on the product, and we are committing code on a daily basis. We have to make sure that the, the the code that we are committing to the repository as a whole for the whole product it's not actually breaking the product, or at least it is at the level where your code is compiling. Okay? So there are we do integration at a very at a regular interval. Okay, a typical continuous integration tools and projects would run your run compilation or integrate the code at a frequency of maybe 10 to 12 times a day. Okay, it is not very unusual to do that. Okay, but again, we'll talk about the details and the technicalities of continuous integration shortly in next few webinars that are coming up. Sustainable pace. um, this is a practice in Agile as a whole. We looked at velocity of a team when we were talking in one of the webinars, and we understand that velocity is how many story points that a team can produce in a particular sprint. And we also talked about being able to sustain that velocity. Okay, and that is exactly what sustainable pace means here. It's possible that a team was able to kill themselves in a particular sprint, worked overtime, double the time, maybe more, and was able to deliver 40 stories instead of 20 that they usually do. Okay, it does not mean that that pace of 40 stories is sustainable. You will not, that team will not be able to do 40 stories in every sprint. Okay, so the velocity is something that we have to keep in mind. uh, it's something that you can sustain indefinitely. Okay, so in XP the team works at a sustainable pace. Okay, and then we come to the practices that are at the very core, at the in the middle here. Okay, which is we'll start with simple design. Okay, simple design connects directly with the simplicity core value. It's it's trying to okay, sorry. um, it's simple design means keep simple things simple. Don't design for infinite flexibility, don't design for infinite scalability. Just be focused on what the problem that you're trying to solve, and what is the easiest, quickest solution for that. Okay, and keep the design that way. Refactoring is a continuous thing in XP. It's not something, it's also called opportunistic refactoring. There's a very good blog I was reading by Martin Flower, uh, who also works for ThoughtWorks now, a big agile enterprise. It talks beautifully about how refactoring is at a very core of our agility, especially in software development. So it's a continuous thing. If you see something that is wrong with the code, even though you're not directly influencing that code yourself at that time when you're implementing a story, you should be courageous enough to go in and do that refactoring. It doesn't mean that you just want to change the variable names or just correct spellings. It means that it can go down to a level where you may want to break down that class or create abstractions or refine interfaces. So it can go down to the level of design detail. Okay, so eh, over a period of time, you would notice that your the health. If everybody in the team is involved in that opportunistic refactoring, the health of the code and the quality of the code is going to gradually improve. So refactoring is a continuous activity in XP. Pair programming, I think we talked about it in detail a few webinars ago. It's two programmers working on the same story or writing code together. One of them is writing uh, the code, and the other one is reviewing the code at the same time, trying to see how it fits in the big picture. in the overall, high level grand scheme of things. Very, very quick way of reviewing code. Okay, and very, uh, very efficient. And then we have the test driven development, which is at the core development level. Uh, we talked about test driven development in the last webinar, how you write the failing test cases first, or write the minimal code to make a test case fail first, and then write the core functionality, core implementation to make that test case uh, make that test case pass. Okay, and we're talking about not just one test case. We're talking about a whole bunch of test cases. So when you start working on a story, you want to write a whole bunch of test cases, failing test cases, JUnits, or whichever technology that you're using at the development level, unit level. And then you start writing code, the meat of the code, to make those test cases pass. Okay, so there's a huge advantage. The quality of your code is going to be amplified. Okay, is nobody able to hear me? I hear quite a few people complaining. Can somebody write in the chat that they're able to hear my voice? Okay, so okay, great. I see quite a few of you able just reply. Okay, so those of you who are having trouble with the mic, please please check your speakers. Thank you. All right. So these are the 5 core values and 12 XP practices. Um, any questions so far on this before we move on? I want to show the feedback loop in XP. Okay. There's a question about simple design. Yes. So simple design is again at the programming level, designing level, low level design level. We don't want to overcomplicate things. Okay, design should be clear and simple. As soon as we start complicating things or trying to implement uh, things that try to make the code infinitely flexible or infinitely scalable, that's when we start making things complex. Okay, yes, there are non-functional requirements as well for your product and services, but the idea is to keep things very simple. Okay, not try to implement something that is not needed at this time. Okay, also tied to lean thinking. Okay, another question on refactoring. Yes, refactoring is something that is largely ignored by those of you who have technical background in software engineering. um, Refactoring is something that is a continuous exercise in XP. For example, if you, let's say you created an interface today, okay, which has just one method, and you write an implementing class. That class has implementation for that method. Now, let's say 2 months later, you realize that there are 4 or 5 different implementing methods in that class, or you find that some of the implementations, they are already implemented in some other interface in some other class. Okay, so you come to a point where you realize that you're writing the same code uh, at 2 different places. Okay, it becomes a problem maintaining. Also, it goes against the concept of code reuse in object oriented concepts. So what you want to do, you may want to create an abstract class that abstracts this common functionality into it, and the other classes can extend from it. Okay, so this is an extreme example of where you may need to refactor your code. Okay, you're not really adding any new functionality, you're not adding any new feature. What you're doing is you're just organizing your code. You're trying to make yourself much closer to object oriented concepts. Okay, so this is an example of where you would want to do that refactoring. You are not creating a separate story to work on just this task. It just happened so that you were working on a story and you came across this design flaw per se, and At that time, you may want to take at that point you may want to take out time to organize your code. Okay, this is an example of opportunistic refactoring. Okay, this is largely ignored by the software developers. Okay, and this is something that we should all understand. The benefits outweigh the the cost that you would imply at the time when you take out, you take out time to implement this. Okay, the question of metaphors. Okay, then there's a question on difference between Scrum and extreme programming. I will elaborate that shortly. Okay, so metaphors very quickly. Like I said, like I gave an example of, gateway. Let's say you're working in a project or a product that requires interface with, payment gateway. You have integration there, and you know every time somebody, you can have your own own code for uh, own project code for that module that interfaces with the payment gateway, and you may want to name it project X. So that project X becomes a metaphor. So every time somebody is talking about project X, everybody in the room or everybody in that communication understands what you're talking about. Okay, like you have module names. Okay, they sometimes what happens is, technical people have a tendency of using their own language for a certain implementation. Business people, they have their own language. Support people, they have their own language. High level management, they have their own language. Just to make sure that there's no confusion in the communication, it is important to define metaphors as well. Just like we define coding standards, what are the conventions that we are going to follow. It's kind of a metaphor can be defined in, you can have a dictionary uh, where you have defined all the different metaphors that you have invented and what they actually mean. Okay, just to make sure that we are not mixing metaphors, not causing any problems in communication. Okay, the other question was about the difference between Scrum and XP. Okay, so there are a lot of differences. However, there are more commonalities between XP and Scrum than differences. So differences, we're just going to focus on that, is in the team size. First of all, okay, you can have small team sizes uh, can use extreme programming. Ultimately, it comes to the question of, if which methodology you want to go for. Okay, a simple um, uh, rule that I go by. I have worked in both XP and Scrum myself. When your team size is small and they are co-located and you're sitting very close to the customer, it is best that you use extreme programming. Okay. However, when your team sizes are small, but you have multiple teams, when you have multiple, Scrum team 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they're having Scrum of Scrum. When you're looking for scalability, you have a bigger product, you have many customers, you have many product owners, and you have larger releases. Okay, or you don't have small releases, it is best that you use Scrum. Okay, so again, there's no no clear rule when you should go for one or the other, but this has been my experience. um, in Scrum, another difference, we'll also look at the roles, so there'll be some differences that you will notice there as well. In Scrum, you have three roles. Okay, product owner, Scrum master, and team. Okay, whereas in XP you have a little bit, there's a little difference in there, and we are going to look at those details. So in general, they are both agile methodologies. They use the same tools and techniques. They follow the same agile practices, and at the core they have the same values. Okay, it's just a matter of where they emphasize more, uh, and what is the what is the pace at which you're executing. So let's look at the feedback loops. I see that there are a couple of other questions that are coming in, but I think that they will all be answered in feedback loops and the roles that we are looking at. Right. So feedback loop. This I took a separate session on in detail in just on this feedback loop. I'm going to be brief now in the interest of time. So you can see that this feedback coming at different levels. Okay, so I'll start with the top. There's a release plan. Okay, so you're getting feedback as soon as you release something. You get feedback from the customer. Okay, so that is a release plan. Okay, so you every time you release, you're getting feedback from the customer. Let's say at a monthly level. Okay, um, your releases are scheduled to be once a month or once in 3 months, regardless. Okay, this at the top level, you're getting a feedback based on your releases. Okay, then you have iterations. Okay, so iterations can be anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks. So you're getting feedback at the end of every iterations. If you remember, you have a uh, you're doing retro, you're doing demo, you're taking feedback from the customer if you're doing customer tests as well. So you're getting feedback at the iteration level. Okay, this as a whole, this whole feedback loop that you see is a very it's the strength of Agile. Okay, because you're getting feedback at so many different levels, you are Agile. Okay, so coming down after the iteration plan, you have the acceptance tests. Okay, which means that you're engaging customers to to work on the test cases, to define success criteria, uh, acceptance criteria, etc. Okay, so you are forced. The customer is forced to work with you at a continuous pace. Okay, and they are giving you feedback in the matter of days. Okay, then you have the stand-up meetings, which is same as the daily scrum. Okay, so every day, again, very strong knowledge sharing exercise. um, they, you are able to, you're getting feedback at that point, on a daily basis who's blocked, who's not. And it's kind of a team huddle. Then you have pair negotiation and unit tests that happens within hours and minutes. So pair negotiation is, when the development team or the engineers, they talk to product owners, and you're trying to understand what needs to be done for a particular story, you're driving clarity. All that is a part of pair negotiation. Unit tests, like I was saying, that we do test driven development. Okay, so you're writing failing test cases, writing implementation. That is also a great way of getting feedback. Okay, so every time you write an implementation or you're writing unit test case, failing test cases first, you are getting a feedback right there, meaning that you are getting a sense of what before how. Okay, which is very important to see where things fit in the big picture. And then you have pair programming, where you're getting where you're getting your code reviewed in a matter of seconds, because there are two developers writing code together. Okay, very strong reviewing technique. So at the end of this whole, all these feedback loops, you're producing a code, you're producing programs that are of superior quality, very very high quality. Okay, which is the ultimate strength of Agile. So you're able to uh, deliver value to the customer fast, you are also giving them value. You're also providing value which is of very, very high quality. Okay, very, very strong points for Agile. Okay, any questions on the feedback loop before we look at the roles? Okay, yes, acceptance tests. Acceptance tests are, think of them as user acceptance tests, the UAT that we do in a traditional way of project execution. So instead of you doing UAT at the end, you are constantly engaging customer to provide you the success criteria for a particular story. So you're doing it at a story level or at a feature level. Okay, so in order to do that, you will have to communicate with the customer, and that whole customer communication at that point is a great feedback loop right there. Okay, in a traditional way, you would have waited until all the features were implemented, everything was done. Then you do the integration, then you do the bug, um, then you do the QA. After it passes QA, you would come to UAT. That's when you engage customer. Okay, it may be too late to engage customer at that time. So what Agile does is, you are engaging customer at the iterations, within the iterations itself. Yes, release plan is designed. It's kind of a release. There's a whole release planning activity that product product management does. They decide, when they are going to do releases to the customer. They may be doing releases every month. They may be doing releases once in 4 months. Okay, but you're doing iterated development, and the goods that you produce in one iteration or two iterations may go in a release, or it's possible that you may be doing running 6 or 7 iterations and then putting out a release. That is release plan. Excellent. Good questions. Okay, so let's look at the XP roles. So there are, at a high level, there are about 6 XP roles. Some of them are kind of blended together. So we'll start from the top. You have an XP coach. Okay, XP coach performs all these activities that you see here. So XP coach is, understands the process, explains the process to the team, improves team skills, okay, resolves conflicts. Okay, uh, very similar role to Scrum Master. Okay, it's not a managerial role. Yes, management is required, organization is required, discipline is required, leadership is required. It's more of a facilitator role. Okay, then we have XP customer. XP customer is a kind of a interesting role. So we know we had customer tests. Okay, so XP customer is actually writing those customer tests. You can see XP customer is responsible for XP customer tests. Okay, usually it can be a combination of people, or it can be an internal customer. Usually it's the product owner, as we have in Scrum, working closely with a persona on the customer side, or be the persona themselves. So they are doing release planning, they are writing stories. XP customer is writing stories. Um, they also define releases and iterations and provide a vision, as you can see here. So XP customer is essentially telling us what they want in a product. Okay, what is it that going to give them value, make them profitable? In turn, it'll make the team profitable. Okay, so two basic roles. Then you have the third role here, which is XP programmer. XP programmer is first of all responsible for writing code. Okay. Other than that, they define coding standards, maybe metaphors. Uh, they do the estimations for the user stories, implement Spike. We talked about the Spike a few iterations ago. Okay, refactoring code, integration, build, etc. Okay, XP Coda, typical team member in Scrum methodology. And then there's XP Programmer Administrator, which is a kind of a special type of XP programmer. In practical world, one of the XP programmers assumes the role of XP Programmer Administrator as well. So XP Programmer Administrator performs the setup of the environments. Could be local development environment, could be other distributed development environment or shared development environment. So in real world, it's usually the XP programmer. One of the XP programmers assumes the XP programmer administrator role. Okay, there are a couple of questions. How can I guarantee the quality with rapid releases and fast turnaround speed? How can we guarantee quality? Okay, so guaranteeing quality is a very loose term. So there are different standards companies follow. Okay, you may be following Six Sigma standard or ISO 9001 or CMMI level. Okay, these are all quality standards. Okay, so there's, at the enterprise level, you're guaranteeing that. It doesn't mean that you have to give up your those standards just to be agile. Okay, there's a process, there's a concept of process tailoring. um, the the fact that you're following agile practices and adhering to core values of agile, that itself is instilling huge quality in your code, and code quality will directly reflect in the product quality. Okay, so what we are trying to do here in XP with from the feedback loop that I was trying to explain is that because you're doing all that, you're getting feedback at all these different levels, and you have open channels for receiving that feedback and using that feedback to make yourself better in those loops. You are instilling quality to create a very very, very superior code. So just by following agile practices or these XP practices, you are instilling quality. So you are guaranteed to instill quality if you're doing it right. Okay, you do have to follow these practices and have checks and balances in place. Make sure your team is motivated, they understand XP very well or agile very well. They are following test driven development, they are following, they are engaging customer to get acceptance tests. So all these practices, they will absolutely instill high quality in the product that you'll produce. Okay. Another question: are XP programmers developers? Yes, they are. Okay, so as you can see on the slide here, XP programmer is responsible for writing code, okay, which is core development work, core engineering work. Okay, a couple of more roles very quickly. There's XP tracker, uh, who tracks in iteration progress and release progress. Most of the time, the XP coach would assume XP tracker responsibility as well. XP tracker is very similar to program, also very similar to program manager in traditional way of thinking. Okay, so it releases somebody who understands the releases at a high level too. And then you have the XP tester, okay, similar to QA engineer or one of the QA members in a Scrum team. Okay, so these are the core, 6 XP roles. Those of you who are planning to take ACP certification from PMI, you will get at least 2 or 3 direct questions on the XP roles. Okay, very easy questions to answer if you have gone through these roles once already. All right, so this is all about XP. Do we have any questions? We have about 5 minutes left, so I do want to just have a little quiz so that I can keep you guys engaged. Let's look at the first question. Please read the question yourself and try to answer. Unfortunately, I was not able to set it up as a poll in GoToMeeting, but you can see it on my screen and take a minute and answer. Send me your answer privately to me in chat or in the questions box. Okay, getting a lot of responses already. All right. So the correct answer, I see some of you answered, most of you answered D. Okay, so the correct answer is D. The question was, which of the following is not an example of information radiator? Okay, so burn down chart. Yes, it is an example. It is the the chart that we use, or the graph that we use to track the progress within a sprint, how the team is working, how the team is progressing with the work. Burn up chart. I haven't taken a session on burn up chart. I'll be taking it soon. Is how we are burning up value in our product. Okay, again, it's a chart. So definitely an information radiator that should be available to all. Okay, team calendar is also an information radiator. Everybody in the team can be made aware when they're on leave, or what is their availability when they're working on which team, etc. It is an information radiator. Pair programming is a practice, is an XP practice. It has nothing to do with the information radiation. Okay, correct answer is D. Next question. Please read the question yourself and send your answers. Okay, great. Um, Almost all of you got it right. The correct answer is E. The question is, XP relies on which of the following practices? Okay, pair programming is a practice. Short releases is definitely a practice. Continuous integration, collective code ownership, they're all practices. So all of the above. Correct answer. Very good. And let's take this one last question and we'll wind up. Okay, great. Almost everybody got this one right as well. Very good. The correct answer is B. Which of the following is not an XP role? XP manager is not an XP role. XP coach is. Okay, excellent. So we learned a lot about XP today. Unfortunately, we did not have time to go over a tool. But next time, which is on 25th October, okay, which is 2 weeks from now, I will definitely take up Jude for UML. Okay. And if I was not able to answer any of your questions, please feel free to contact me. This is my contact information. You can reach me. You can connect with me in LinkedIn. Whenever you send a connection request on LinkedIn, it would be nice if you can specify that you know me from these agile webinars. It's easy for me to connect with you that way. You can reach me on Twitter or directly on my Gmail address. Also, there is an ACP Agile training coming up that will give you 21 PDUs for the PMI's certification. It's going to be 2 day long training, very grilling, uh, 8 to 9 hours a day. We are going to cover everything that is under the umbrella of Agile. Uh, and we'll cover everything in detail that is specified by PMI's outline of Agile. So it's coming up on 19th and 20th October. If you are willing to take that training, you can register on that website. This is searchschool.com/agile-classes webinar. But if you just search for Search School in Google and Agile classes, you'll be able to reach there very easily. The cost of that training we are doing. Uh, the question is One of the questions is, I'm a PMP. Do I still need to pay 495 for the exam? Yes, the exam, the fee for the exam, PMI ACP exam, is $495 regardless of whether you have taken PMP or not. Okay, and all of you are eligible. If you have taken PMP or if you are eligible for PMP, you are eligible for PMI ACP as well. Okay, those of you who have taken PMP already, I strongly recommend that you take ACP as well. It doesn't matter whether you want to take training from Search School or wherever. Uh, our training, Search School's training, will also provide you 21 PDUs, and we are doing a special right now. I think the training is for $299, and it's going to be on Saturday and Sunday, 19th and 20th October. Uh, I've done many batches. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and we are very closely linked with PMI. We know any changes that they may be doing to their certification. We have the inside information. Also, you will get the opportunity to share with me the real, my agile experience in practical world. And I'm doing this because I love agility. I love to share information. Um, I love to learn more about agile. So it's it's less of a business interest, more of a mentoring interest. So if any of you interested, feel free to reach out to me directly or just go to that website. The next free webinar is going to be on 25th October. We'll keep doing this. There's so much to learn, so much information every day. There's something new that is coming up in Agile. Um, it's a great way, it's a great forum to learn new things. Okay. The recording will be available on YouTube as usual. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.